Despite the inability of the federal government of Nigeria to provide potable water to a majority of its citizens, the National Water Resources Bill has now passed a second reading in the House of Representatives, and it's also been referred to a House committee. At the moment, civil society groups across the country are criticizing the bill, saying that it would breach citizens' rights to water and insisting that ownership of water bodies should not be vested on the federal government, and that mandating Nigerians to get a federal permission to drill boreholes in homes or businesses is an infringement of that inalienable right. It will also be recalled that the bill failed to secure a concurrent passage by both houses in the 8th Assembly.
Well, joining us to discuss Nigeria flood prediction and national water bill is an expert in geoscience and an authority in national water resources, Dr. AKOMENO OTERI. Glad to have you join us, Dr. AKOMENO.
Very much for having me.
All right, fantastic. Somebody asked the question, why floods keep occurring in Nigeria? What will be your answer to that question, and what is the way out? What solutions are there?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me again. I'm here on the platform of the so-called Progressive Front. We are from Delta State and in the Delta, and any flood concerns us because it comes to our place. Now, floods occur every year because there is always rain every year. And the rainwater, when the rain falls, part of it will flow on the surface of the ground into the streams, into the rivers, which we call runoff. A part of it goes into the ground, which we call infiltration, which will replenish the groundwater below. But with development of the urban areas and what have you, deforestation, more of the water comes out as runoff instead of going into the ground. Therefore, when you have a other heavy rainfall, or there's been a change in the vegetation and the planning and what have you, more of the water goes into runoff so that you now have floods. And so this is why floods occur. Part of it is natural, part of it is due to climate change, but a lot of it is due to the action of man and, of course, man and woman.
Yeah, the second part of that question was what solution there is.
Well, there are various solutions. First of all, we have to monitor the flood. We have to keep check, monitor rainfall, monitor flows in the river system. We have to keep our environment well in terms of our drainages and not dumping refuse in the drainages. Then, of course, we have to build structures. If, after all, we've done what we need to do in terms of collecting data, because you can collect data and predict. This is why the DG and Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency, long before now, were able to tell us that there is going to be flooding. And that is because there is data, there are data in the Niger Basin, Niger River Basin, right from Niamey in Niger up to Mali and some in Nigeria, which they get at regular intervals. They interpret them and are able to predict with rainfall on what is going to happen in 6 months' time, 10 months' time. Now, when you have that data, you can predict. Then, of course, you can build structures. If after everything you've done well, but the rain is more than usual, you can build some dams, you can build diversions so that some of the excess rainwater is diverted into other structures. And there are other structures you can build to prevent flooding.
Thank you, Dr. OTERI. The DG of Nihsa himself has said that he has long advocated for us to build artificial drainages from the River Niger into as many states as possible. So would you say that that's one solution? To add to that, yesterday we got fake news. It was later confirmed that it was fake news that the Kanji Dam in Niger State had burst. But after that happened, Mainstream Energy Solutions Limited, who managed the dam, came out to state that the dam had not burst, but they were carrying out a water spillage exercise that's in order to regulate the flow of the River Niger. How often do these exercises occur? Are they challenging for surrounding communities, or are they to help communities? Can you elaborate on that for us and give us a more robust understanding?
Well, when there is excess rainfall, and right now there is, because this rainfall we are getting is actually not the one that is falling in Nigeria, but it's the one that is following the upper stream of the River Niger. That is in Niamey, that is Niger Republic, and the countries over there. So this water is now flowing into River Niger, and it gets to Kenji Dam. Now, if the level rises too high in Kenji Dam and you don't release the water, then you are going to have the dam bursting. And if the dam bursts, all of us are dead in that zone, because it's going to be so sudden. So they have to release the water. And right now, from information, the level in the Niamey, which is the benchmark, is very, very high, much higher than it was in 2012 at the same time. It's been in the red alert for the past few weeks from information available to me. Even Lokoja right now has the level is very, very high, much higher than it was in 2012. So you have to release at the various dams so that the dams will not break, because that will be very, very catastrophic. But when it is now released, if there were structures downstream to take care of this excess water, like the DG has said, then there won't be a problem. Unfortunately, on the Nigerian side, we don't have any structures, and from what I've been able to gather, after Lokoja downstream, there isn't much of even any monitoring of water levels. And we are now talking of the water coming from Niamey, that is Niger Republic on the River Niger. We haven't even talked of the water that is going to be coming from River Kaduna. We haven't even talked of the one coming from the Benue River and the tributaries. If those ones add to it, then we are in trouble, all over the place. So really, Nigeria needs to have done more and needs to do more to be able to manage flood. I mean, every country does it. Unfortunately, we haven't been doing it. We don't have structures to manage the flood. And this is something that needs to be done promptly.
All right. You talked about dams.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get to that. But I think this next question is more important for me and for people, because government is about people. Yeah. Leadership is about people. Whatever we do is about the human resources. So let's talk about the relocation, of people. What permanent, instead of ad hoc plans, should be put in place to relocate people, so it won't be so much stress, and you can follow laid down plans. And then you can add to that, because I watch, videos abroad where you see helicopters being used, all sorts of equipment being used to help people relocate. Do we have such resources? Do we have such equipment here? Can we get them?
Well, what I want to say on that is, at this point in time, because unfortunately we haven't been prepared for recurrent floods, as is happening now, the only way is for everybody to listen to predictions, and once they say relocate, people should be relocated promptly before it gets too late, because that's all we can do right now. And there are countries like the Gulf Coast and many other places where there are hurricanes every time, but because there is prompt prediction and people are asked to relocate or stay and what have you, and they do it, the damage in terms of human life is minimized. So we need to do that so that people, including governments, should be on the lookout and watch for predictions of when the flood is going to reach a particular place, who is going to be affected, and who needs to be moved from the abode to a higher ground.
That's the question. Do we have such places where people can be relocated to?
I think we've gone through this before in 2012, when there was very heavy floods in the River Niger Basin. That means, when I say River Niger Basin, it involves both the Niger and the Benue River system. And even in my own area in Isoko, people were relocated. Even in my community, a lot of them had to move from my community to higher grounds. Some went to their children. I remember one of my aunties, we had to send an emergency boat for her to be able to be ferried across. So people should now start getting prepared that we are having a flood which is going to be like that of 2012, and the I know in Delta State and some other states, they have emergency relocation areas. Those should now be prepared, but of course, we're in COVID era, and which means it's going to be more difficult relocating people because you don't want to cram them together, and instead of flood killing them, COVID kills them. So that will make it a bit more difficult, but we have to start getting prepared. Actually, when I heard about a downbreak, the first thing that almost came to my mind was to start making phone calls to my village and contacts and all that they should start getting prepared, because once it reaches Lokoja, it will come to the whole Delta area and we are going to be affected. But we just have to, it's an emergency, there's no other way. You can't let people die because there is, you are not, there's flood. We have to relocate them, and all resources should be put to do that.
Certainly, Dr. OTERI. Let's shift this conversation over now, away from floods. Let's speak about the National Water Resources Bill, very controversial, and it has now scaled the second reading. What is your take on this controversial bill that, of course, as we know, did not make it past the 8th National Assembly?
This is a bill that really interests me greatly. Because I've been involved in it since 2013-14, and actually much earlier. First of all, let me state this, that every country in this world has a National Water Resources Bill. You have to regulate and manage water. Surface water and borehole water, they are interrelated in what we call the hydrological cycle. But you have to manage it. If not, there are very many things that could happen, and you might not even get water at all, or the water is polluted. But the current National Water Resources Bill it's not, to me and to many people, it's not what it should be, because in a federation like Nigeria, the rule should be, the states should be on the driving seat on regulation. Then the federal is at the background. Also, there's just like the Niger River Basin, which is in charge of the whole of the Niger River Basin, right from Guinea through many countries, about 7 countries to Nigeria. When we were talking about that, I said that the main benchmark is in Niamey, Niger Republic, so that data is collected there, is collected from Nigeria and sent there, and the whole thing is well managed. So similarly, in the National Water Resources, in a federation like Nigeria, is the states that should be there collecting, doing a lot of the things. Then the federal will collect from them and cooperate and work with them. And this is what actually on Sunday, 6th of September, there was an article in the Daily Trust, which actually looked at countries where the National Resources Bill is on a federal level. And in 2017, when it first came up before they went into the National Assembly, when they were discussing it, the Nigerian Association of Hydrogeologists, of which I'm a fellow, had a panel discussion at Ilorin on this bill. And I was one of those who made the presentation. And I stated exactly the same thing, that the current one is deficient because everything is concentrated at the federal. It is wrong. It should be on states. Then federal is at the background. That's number one. Then this issue of adjoining land being part of it, it's another anomaly that shouldn't be there. There are many deltas in this country, in this world. There are many rivers in this world where rivers pass, and there are water resources, and the land is not part of it. People have to stay on the land, and you cannot adjoin the land and say federal is taking it. It is wrong, and I stated it there.
Doctor, what this is, you have added a twist to this discussion, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
People who have interviewed always come up with, it's hopeless, it's useless, it shouldn't be done. But you said that regulation is important.
Yes.
But that the question here is the order. Instead of federal being on top,
right,
it should be states, then federal. What are you doing, or what are people like you doing? Now you have recognized that regulation is important to get this bill tweaked, or the things you're talking about removed and what you want added.
Like I said, I've been involved in this for quite a while. If you go into history, even in Lagos State, the first time borehole regulation came on was in 1977. And before we got independence, every borehole had data that was submitted into a central organization. That was before independence. Of course, when we got independence, just like many things in Nigeria, the good things were pushed aside. But in 1977, there was a project in Lagos by Kamsa Kruger, and they carried out a data collection and recommended that there should be a regulation of boreholes and what have you, just like, without taking people's land and what have you, for Lagos State. Unfortunately, it wasn't made to work. In 1993-96, there was the World Bank projects, which we all know in Lagos. They did so many things. They built where along Ogun River. There was laying of pipes for water distribution and so many other things. Part of it was the study of the hydrogeology. And my company, Akute Georesource, at that time, I'm no more there. Akute Georesource, which could Blizzard, a British firm and another British firm. We worked on the hydrogeology of Lagos State for 3 years. We collected data. We first of all collected all the data by Kamsa Kruger, which we couldn't get in this country. We had to get that report from Australia. Then we added to it, visited drilling firms and what have you, ordinary companies, collected a lot of data, built a data bank, then wrote up a draft law and said Lagos State, the Water Corporation should create a division of water data, water resources unit, where they will be monitoring groundwater, they will be monitoring surface water, and all these regulations. Again, it didn't work. Then later on, Lagos State Water Regulatory Commission came on stream. There were a lot of seminars, many of which I participated when Fashola was governor, son, and eventually there was a committee set up. I was a member of that committee. Then there was a barrister, Barrister Nwokedi from outside, with the Executive Secretary of Lagos State Water Regulatory Commission as chairperson, and some of their staff. We made a draft water regulation for Lagos State. It was passed in the House and is now operational. Then, at the federal level, like I told you, when the federal one came, I have been a major advocate of saying there are parts in it that are not right. And I've stated, I agree there should be a water law. But the present one is deficient. Some people say, oh, we should allow it to pass through, but in my own opinion, if something is bad, you shouldn't allow it to pass through and say you are making changes. Change it first, then let the good one go. But we need a water law. Recently, there was a webinar at international level in Africa where countries like Uganda has a very good water law that they're operating. Even during this COVID, a country like Egypt was still monitoring the river Nile. For example, we get water in Lagos coming from Ogun State. The water in Lagos comes from Ogun State to Akute. There should be monitoring along it to know how much water is coming, especially the quality. Is a company pumping refuse or pumping sewage into the river somewhere? What if it happens? There should be monitoring for it to be known. Then in Lagos State, for example, we have similar problems where by the sea, if somebody pumps his borehole too much, or in an area like Ikoyi, you pump all your boreholes too much, then seawater will come in and the water will spoil. In Baruwa area, there's oil spillage, which is affecting all the boreholes. And if somebody pumps, you have a borehole there, it can be affected. So these are the things, there are so many factors why you should have water regulation.
Certainly.
Fantastic.
Many thanks to you, Dr. AKOMENO OTERI, for joining us today on Newsday to share your views. This has been a very interesting conversation.
Yeah.